We're a private, not-for-profit organization. As always, please feel free to contact us with your comments, suggestions, or questions, and stay with us. Reading the Buffalo News is coming up next.
The following program is intended for listeners who are blind, have low vision, or another print disability that makes reading, holding a book, or turning a page difficult or impossible. The content is copyrighted by the respective publishers. For more information, please visit us on the web at nfradioreading.org. And good morning. Your Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service now presents a reading of articles and features from the Buffalo News for today, Tuesday, July 28th of 2026. Your readers today are
Lita
and JJ, and we're going to open as we usually do with the weather. A little bit overcast out there right now. It's mostly cloudy and not as warm today, with a couple of showers and a thunderstorm with a high of 76. Tonight, an evening thunderstorm or two, followed by a couple of soaking showers late with a low of 64. Tomorrow, Wednesday, we have a couple of showers with a high of 72 and a low of 64. Thursday, sunshine with a shower with a high of 78 and a low of 62. Friday, rather cloudy with a high of 81 and a low of 65. Saturday, high thin cloudiness with a high of 82 and a low of 66. Sunday, a few afternoon showers with a high of 78 and a low of 65. And Monday of next week, a couple of showers with a high of 79 and a low of 63. Yesterday's high was 81 and a low was 66. The normal high is 80 with a low of 63, so it wasn't too different. The record high was 90 back in 1964, and the record low was 48 degrees back in 1977. Last year's high was 84 and a low was 72. And nationally, again, Needles, California got the high with 109 degrees, and Truckee, California is 32. The air quality index is moderate, and the sun rose this morning at 6:02 a.m. and will set tonight at 8:41, and the moon will rise at 8:30 p.m. and it sets at 4:43 a.m. And our weather trivia: what's the longest string of days above 120 degrees? And it was 43 at Death Valley, California.
Oh my gosh.
I think I'll stay. Buffalo looks better and better all the time.
Okay, let's move over to some Trump economic report cards.
Goody.
And of course, it's mixed at an 18-month mark. The first 18 months of President Trump's second term in the White House have seen a series of policy-driven economic shocks, highlighted by the immigration crackdown and higher tariffs that he promised during his 2024 campaign, and an unanticipated war with Iran that has boosted the price of oil and threatened global supply chains. While the U.S. economy overall has withstood the policy changes and Middle East war better than many economists expected, Trump's vow to lower prices, boost factory jobs, and improve life for the middle class has yet to materialize, with the midterms a little more than 3 months away. While resilient, the economy has also stalled in many of the areas where Trump said that mass deportations of undocumented people and higher import tax would trigger a boom, with the U.S.-Israeli war against Iran intensifying some key risks. As far as jobs are concerned, the broadest measure of employment comes from the Bureau of Labor Statistics Household Survey. Changes in population statistics in early 2026 means BLS's published data is not strictly comparable from year to year, showing a sharp drop in employment and the number of people looking for jobs in January, largely due to the new controls. But the agency does use the new population estimates for an experimental series that looks back 5 years to create a consistent data set beginning in April of 2020. That data also shows declines in both the labor force and number of people working since Trump's return to office, a logical development given the efforts to limit immigration and increase deportations. Coupled with an aging native population, fewer people are available to fill jobs. So who's hiring? Trump said his policies would lead to a U.S. manufacturing revival with jobs to follow. There has been an investment boom in artificial intelligence data centers, whose impact on output and jobs remains to be seen. The AI investment has pushed construction employment higher, but payroll reports show fewer manufacturing jobs than at the end of former President Joe Biden's administration. Biden left the presidency in January of 2025. Some of Trump's priorities are reflected in the jobs data, such as the drop in the number of government workers. But it's hard to reshape what an economy of 342 million people demands. It's a society that likes restaurants and bars, and it's one that's getting older and in need of more healthcare services. Changes in hiring reflect that dynamic. As far as prices go, inflation was a major campaign theme in 2024, with anger over the COVID-19 pandemic price shock still fresh even as price pressures eased while the Feds raised interest rates. But Trump's promise to lower prices was never realistic. Historically, U.S. prices on a broad basis only fall during dire economic times. Lowering inflation is possible, but any improvement under Trump has been modest. The most closely watched price indexes show progress stalling, with inflation still above the Fed's 2% target and policymakers concerned about the risk of its moving higher. Import tariffs adding to the price hikes to some degree. Oil surged to around $100 a barrel, about 50% more than where it was traded before the war in the Middle East began in February, added to the pressure, and now the demands from the AI build-out are doing the same. Economists expect relative price shifts. In any given period, certain goods will increase relative to others. But when the increases are big and broad enough and different items keep rotating through the price increase cycle, the result is more generalized inflation. Some Fed officials see that scenario as an imminent risk. So incomes, well, setting aside debate about whether a so-called K-shaped income distribution in which the wealthy and highest earners prosper while low and middle income households fare less well, is fair or sustainable, consumer spending has held up throughout the various Trump-era shocks. But it's unclear how long that trend can continue given that the broadest measure of household spending power, disposable personal income adjusted for inflation, has stalled out and even declined recently. Disposable personal income is what's left after tax and covered wages, as well as things like payments from SS pension programs, in effect, the money left in a person's pocket to pay for housing, food, and other goods and services. Affordability, well, Trump has veered from promising to make life more affordable to dismissing that objective as unimportant, calling recently enacted congressional legislation aimed at improving home affordability a big yawn and refusing to sign it. Housing is a difficult issue. Presidents have held out home ownership as a touchstone of individual wealth and success for Americans, but lawmakers have curbed credit standards when markets go frothy and caused a global financial crisis. After years of ultra-low interest rates, the pandemic added further fuel to the U.S. housing market, driving up home prices, and then Fed rate hikes meant to curb inflation made affordability worse by pushing mortgage rates to new heights. Mortgage rates remain elevated, as do home insurance premiums that are linked to higher home values and other relevant costs. The federal government can do only so much about housing supply. Extending tax credits or similar policies can help, but the sector remains under the control of local governments and their patchwork of land using and zone rules. The bottom line, however, is that home ownership continues to command an outsized share of household income. In the stock market, Trump has long been fixated on the performance of the U.S. stock market, with the president touting major indices, recent record highs as evidence of his policy successes. The fact is, though, stocks tend to rise over time regardless of who is president, and most modern U.S. leaders have seen record equity prices during their terms. The market's performance since January 25 ranks right in the middle of the pack when measured against presidents going back to Ronald Reagan. The S&P index has gained roughly 25% during Trump's second term versus a median gain of about 24% over the first 18 months of presidential terms dating back to 1981. That performance still measures up well against the overall compound annual growth rate of 9.5% for stocks at that period. And the AI sector has been a major drive of the market gains since Trump returned to the White House. But AI, currently the single largest driver of the business investment boom supporting GDP growth, is moving more than just the stock market. Year-to-date corporate bond issuance of $1.5 trillion through the end of June, a big chunk of it to finance the AI build-out, is on a record pace, surpassing the most pandemic booms in 2020. Strong issuance combined with tight spreads and robust demand points to a resilient economy and solid corporate balance sheets.
Thank you. And from John Bennett and Savannah Behrman, GOP leader Thune appears to be safe as tensions with Trump boil. John Thune is yet to be branded with a derisive nickname from Donald Trump, but the president and his team have turned up the heat on the Senate Majority Leader. Yet GOP sources are banking that South Dakotan has the support of his caucus. The latest Republican on Republican drama has yet to reach full-blown Washington feud level. But tensions are picking up as the legislative days tick away and what's left of Trump's second-term agenda hangs in the balance. With the Senate slated to leave soon after a month-long recess, Thune has shown no signs of bringing Trump's prized elections overhaul bill, the Save America Act, to the floor. One former senior GOP Senate aide, G. William Hoagland, now of the Bipartisan Policy Center, said Friday the president should not and cannot be successful with his attacks on Thune, adding, Thune will survive because the Senate itself must and will survive. I had the opportunity to meet with a couple of Republican senators recently, and they told me Thune had the complete support of his caucus with a couple of outliers, Hoagland said. Ending the careers of Bill Cassidy and John Cornyn by the president was viewed by many as a direct attack on the body and members who had been supportive of the administration. It was an attack that Thune and many others will not long forget. Republican strategist Douglas Hayes also sees Thune's job as safe, for now at least. That's because he's doing the dual job of leading and protecting his members, which also involves math, Hayes said, adding, and the private majority leader vote is nothing like the speaker vote, which happens in public and involves Democrats. Thune has the support of well over half the Senate Republican conference, in part because he's straight with the conference. Hayes said Trump doesn't care about the conference or the party and just what he wants, math be damned. Trump often grew frustrated with previous GOP Majority Leader Mitch McConnell's protection of Senate rules and procedures and his talk of political realities. The same frustrations are seeping into public with Thune, the former Senate GOP whip who was a McConnell mentee. Trump never seemed to quite understand or respect the Senate's core framework. Hoagland, who worked for the then Senate Majority Leader Bill Frist, a Republican from Tennessee, said being the majority leader of the Senate is one of the more thankless jobs in Congress, and that's because a majority leader's responsibilities to enforce the Senate's rules and procedures combined with its deliberative processes can be viewed by some as archaic and inefficient, thus creating the opportunity for the president to find ample opportunity to criticize the Senate and its leaders, Hoagland said. Senator Thune is protecting the prerogatives and independence of the Senate just as the Constitution requires. Trump's patience is running out, White House Press Secretary Carolyn Leavitt said Thursday. He just wants to see as much of the Save America Act passed as possible by the August recess. A day earlier, during a rally in Marietta, Georgia, Trump's jaw tightened as he railed against the Senate's inability to pass the Save America Act, a GOP-crafted package of significant elections changes. They got to terminate the filibuster, the president said. Everybody call John Thune at the Senate and tell him they get this stuff approved, so we're fighting so that all the voters must show voter ID. We're fighting so that all voters must provide proof of citizenship, okay? And also the no mail-in ballots, very important. Cornyn, a Texas Republican who lost to a Trump-backed opponent to the primary, will not have a vote in January when the GOP caucus elects leaders for the 120th Congress, said Thursday of the GOP elections legislation. I'm one of those that said this is unattainable. About the team Trump swipes at the majority leader, Cornyn said, I think it's unfair. One senator who will have a vote in January, newly minted budget chairman Ron Johnson of Wisconsin, seemed to want no part of the feud on Thursday. Sounds like his patience is worn thin, he said of Trump. I don't know what else I can add to it. And a White House official did not directly respond to an inquiry Friday on whether Trump would prefer a new top Senate Republican when the new Congress is seated in January, only referring a reporter to Leavitt's Thursday comments. Notably, the White House, when given an opportunity, did not respond with an endorsement for Thune for the leader in the next Congress. During his first term, Trump often grew impatient and frustrated with then Majority Leader McConnell. Eventually, the president began referring to the Kentucky Republican as the Old Crow, and he even once made McConnell, who has long suffered from the after effects of childhood polio, stand beside him during one impromptu and lengthy Rose Garden press conference in 2017, with the president helping McConnell navigate the space's small steps after he appeared to nearly trip headlong back inside. McConnell mostly tried laughing off public criticism from a president in his own party, criticism that recent presidents like Bill Clinton, George W. Bush, Barack Obama, and Joe Biden avoided during their tenures. McConnell would, in his methodical Kentucky drawl, explain the importance of the Senate's filibuster with its 60-vote threshold, and once dropped this quip about Old Crow moniker, telling an interviewer, "It's my favorite bourbon." Thune last week tried a strikingly direct approach. Well, maybe she or somebody else ought to get on the phone and get the votes, right? It's 50 around here, Thune told reporters Thursday when asked about Leavitt's comments. So instead of, pointing the finger at Republicans, they might think about going after the people who are stopping it at the floor, which is the Democrats, he added. And there are Republicans that they think are gettable on the phone. Let's get them to yes. Trump on Friday said he'd be willing to take up Thune's offer to work the phones to try securing the votes to pass the election legislation, and offered no new criticism of Thune during an exchange with reporters in the Oval Office. Team Trump's increased willingness to call out Thune publicly comes as the president's approval ratings have again dipped as he restarted his war in Iran. Oil prices are ticking up, and voters keep telling pollsters a high cost of living is their top issue. And to that end, asked about Trump's recent statement that he does not think about the midterms when making decisions about the Iran conflict, Senator Tim Kaine, a Democrat from Virginia, responded, "So his decision-making process has been extremely ego-driven rather than fact-driven, and now he has walked us into a box canyon." Kaine also said his GOP colleagues are frustrated by Trump's war and recent antics.
And you are listening to a reading of today's Buffalo News on your Niagara Frontier radio reading service. The time is 17 minutes past the hour. And the president looks to the justices on mail-in voting. President Trump's administration asked the Supreme Court on Monday to allow implementation nationwide of its executive order aimed at tightening rules for mail-in voting ahead of the November midterm elections that will decide control of the Congress. In a filing, the Justice Department requested that the justices put on hold a judge's ruling preventing the enforcement of the Republican president's directive in 23 mostly Democratic governed states and Washington, D.C., which has challenged the order as unconstitutional while the litigation plays out. U.S. District Judge Indira Talwani rejected the administration's argument that the states lacked the necessary legal standing to challenge Trump's directive. In June, Talwani ruled that the president's lack of the authority to order the change in how states administer federal elections, noting that under the U.S. Constitution, states have the role of determining voter eligibility requirements. Trump's executive order, issued in March as part of his wider efforts to make changes in U.S. elections. Trump, who has made false claims of the widespread fraud in U.S. elections, including his 2020 loss to Democrat Joe Biden, has pressed the Republican-controlled Congress to pass a contentious package of voting restrictions called the Save America Act. Trump has vowed to end the use of mail-in ballots nationwide before the midterms and has long cast doubt on the security of such ballots, although evidence of voter fraud is rare. Restricting mail-in ballots would stand to disproportionately benefit Republicans, given that Democratic voters traditionally have been more likely to use mail-in ballots than Republican voters. Trump's executive order directed the Department of Homeland Security to compile and transmit to the states a list of U.S. citizens eligible to vote in each state and the Justice Department to prioritize investigating and prosecuting state and local election officials who issue ballots to people deemed not eligible to vote in federal elections. It also required the U.S. Postal Service to deliver ballots only to voters on each state's approved mail-in ballot list. The U.S. Post Office recently moved to implement Trump's directive. The challenger states, including California and Massachusetts, sued in federal courts in Boston to challenge Trump's order. A group of 12 Republican state attorneys generals intervened in the case to defend Trump's directive. Talwani found that the claims made by the challenging states were not premature, as the administration had argued, and that they had legal standing to sue over Trump's directive because they would face election administration disruption, compliance costs, and a credible threat of criminal prosecution. The judge also noted that federal agencies lacked the ability to compile accurate citizen lists for each state. The Justice Department asked the Boston-based First U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals to put Talwani's ruling on hold based on the administration's view that the challengers lacked standing to sue. The First Circuit rejected the request on Saturday. In June, the Supreme Court rejected a Republican-backed challenge to state laws that allowed mail-in ballots received after election day to be counted.
And a bad example. This is in the opinion page. Buffalo School Board's dysfunction calls for outside intervention. The Buffalo School Board has significantly eroded public confidence in its ability to govern effectively. These adults could use some supervision. The latest example came July 20th when the board deviated from its announced schedule, compressed the process for filling a vacant seat into a matter of hours. The point is not whether Roscoe Henderson III is the best candidate for this seat. He is a retired police investigator who also serves on the board of several arts organizations. The issue is that the entire process unfolded in what has become this board's typically opaque manner, acting first and then offering explanations afterwards. 5 members voted to appoint a new board member despite requests from Buffalo Mayor Sean Ryan and New York State Education Commissioner Betty A. Rosa not to do so. 3 Buffalo School Board members, Eric Bowen, Larry Scott, and Adriana Zulik, abstained from the vote, citing Rosa's letter. Stefan Wright, Louis Mookie Hawkins, Kathy Evans Brown, Juanita Everhart, and Talia Rodriguez voted to appoint Henderson. The board's 5-member majority proceeded despite those requests by Ryan and Rosa. Board President Evan Browns later said the Buffalo School Board did not act in defiance of State Education Commissioner. As reported by the News' Ben Sugimoto, Evans Brown stated, "Rather, we act in good faith, consistent with our legal responsibilities, our commitment to transparency, and our obligation to ensure that every district is represented by full complement of elected leadership." This statement should be taken in context. The reason the seat became vacant was because Cindy McEachin resigned last month, citing frustrations with board transparency and operations. Evans Brown said when she spoke with Rosa about the district leadership challenges, and yet if Rosa urged the board to delay filling the vacant seat, it's difficult to reconcile that conversation with the board's decision to move ahead. The lack of transparency has extended beyond board votes. After a recent board meeting, Evans Brown abruptly left the room before the media, inquiring on the public's behalf, could get more information about the status of pending investigations. Concerns about transparency are compounded by the allegations that have further fueled questions about the board's leadership. A notice of claim was filed that accuses then Superintendent Pascal Mubanga of sexual harassment and abuse of authority, and Hawkins, the current Central District School Board member, of harassing, threatening, and retaliatory conduct. The accusations against Hawkins include sexually charged misconduct and retaliatory actions against Antoinette M. Amos, Buffalo Schools Equity Chief and Governance Officer. Amos, the claimant in the lawsuit, says she rebuffed the board members' romantic pursuits and experienced hostile and threatening conduct as a result. Hawkins is the unnamed board member whose conduct remains under investigation by Hodgson Russ LLP, the third-party law firm selected by the Buffalo School Board late last month. Hawkins said he's not resigning because he is doing the community's work. The board should require Hawkins to step aside from board duties, even temporarily, while the investigations are underway. A growing number of questions from state officials and lawmakers about whether outside oversight is warranted illustrate how far public confidence has fallen. Buffalo's dysfunctional school board is setting a sorry example for the district it is supposed to oversee, not to mention the 30,000 public schools students whose education should be the top priority.
And from Adam Ziegler in the editorial cartoon, we have a split cartoon, and on the left side, we have in bright yellow new uniforms, which of course we all know, which we will read later. The Bills got a new uniform, and the collars are blue, which are indicative of the Buffalo way of life with the blue collar. And then on the other side, we have the complete opposite with, in big yellow, new stadium seating with dollar signs saying, we... And actually, if you look at the stadium, it almost looks like a white collar going around the stadium, but they're actually pointing to the inside of the stadium because inside the seating is enormously expensive. So we are blue collar, and yet we are paying white collar prices.
Yeah.
Take of it what you will. And moving to another voice, and this is submitted by Melissa Fleschut, who is president and CEO of the New York State Restaurant Association. Food safety law will hurt local restaurants. New Yorkers face financial hardships at every turn, especially in Western New York. As costs continue to rise, a new report finds that Buffalo families spend an outsized share of their monthly income on groceries, with the city ranking 7th in the nation. Residents are saving less and spending more to meet their daily needs. But despite tightening household budgets, a majority of consumers continue to dine out or use takeout and delivery services. Buffalo's restaurant industry feeds our community, provides over 65,000 jobs, and contributes almost $8.5 billion to the state's economy. Helping these businesses stay afloat is essential to our collective well-being. To support local establishments, Governor Hochul must veto legislation that will increase food costs and harm family-owned businesses and restaurants. Members of the food, hospitality, and broader business communities have all opposed the Food Safety and Chemical Disclosure Act because it will impose excessive regulations on the food industry and increase production and compliance costs by $1.8 billion without meaningfully enhancing consumer protections. The resulting increase in food costs will force restaurant owners to raise menu prices and cut staff hours to keep their doors open. In addition to creating new costs, this bill would also prevent the use of safe, common ingredients that have been in the restaurant industry for decades. New York's iconic pizza and bagels would require a new recipe, and chefs throughout the state may have to rework their most beloved dishes. Restaurants that are already struggling to turn a profit cannot afford these regulations. With slow winters and declining tourism making it increasingly difficult to run a successful business, these local entrepreneurs are looking for greater investment to help them thrive. State lawmakers should work with the restaurant industry to develop policies that will benefit both business owners and consumers, delivering lower food costs for all. We all want New Yorkers to have access to safe, affordable food products, but creating new regulations that sideline neighborhood institutions is not the solution. I urge Hochul to veto the Food Safety and Chemical Disclosure Act. JJ?
And the occasional memory lapses are scaring. This is my view. And the writer is Tim Franzik of Buffalo, who's getting forgetful. The other day, a woman and her young daughter walked by my house as I was mowing the lawn. As I got closer, I cut the engine, and the woman greeted me with a smile and apparently recognizing my brain was running through names like a slot machine to identify the face of the girl who had babysat my daughter for over 30 years ago. Mercifully, she reminded me of her name, which triggered the flood of pleasant memories. Coincidentally, she had crossed my mind just a few days earlier, and I had no trouble recalling her name. But when it came to connect her name and the face in person, I froze like Ralph Cramden trying to remember who composed Swanee River. Though I'm still on the sunny side of 70, I find that my fragile memory makes me feel older. Lately, I've shown up to music gigs without a microphone stand, guitar stand, cord, capo, and even my guitar. Not a good look for a guitar player. I've also shown up late for meetings even though I arrive at work early and keep a phone diary. The problem might be a short attention span or a scattered brain. Then I wondered about darker explanations like incipient dementia. Some studies report that there are roughly 7 million people in this country with Alzheimer's, which has become the 6th most common cause of death. Other studies suggest that the number of dementia cases will double by 2060. One explanation may be that people live much longer than before. Others have to do with the environment in which we live and the unhealthy food and drinks that we consume. A long held theory which has come under recent criticism is that dementia is due to buildup of plaque and protein which inflame and clog the brain's neural pathways. The problem is that this condition is typically identified post-mortem. Oh dear. More recent research suggests that dementia is a type of diabetes in which the brain cells cannot properly use insulin to absorb glucose, which is a critical source of energy to fuel the transmission of messages from the brain to the rest of the body. Bill Gates, co-founder of Microsoft, whose father died of Alzheimer's disease in 2020, has reportedly spent billions on research in an effort to identify the causes and develop a cure for the disease. Intrigued by the population of Ikara off the Aegean Sea, where people live well past 90 with few signs of dementia and heart disease, Gates scientists identified diet, such as legumes, wild greens, healthy fats, limited animal protein intake, and Greek honey, and a low-stress, community-connected lifestyle as some of the keys to longevity. Sounds good to me. They also identified cadmium chloride, a toxic heavy metal, as a common factor in people with dementia. Cadmium can be found in many common foods. According to the research, cadmium can break through the protective brain-blood barrier, clog neural pathways, and kill nerve cells, which can lead to cognitive dysfunction. Gates' team has developed a botanical supplement purportedly designed to nourish the brain's neurons, eliminate cadmium, and prevent its recurrence over time. It's not cheap, and I can only remember to take the daily dose. I may report on the evolving quality of my cognition.
And lest we forget, you are listening to a reading of today's Buffalo News on your Niagara Frontier Radio reading service. The time is 32 minutes past the hour. And now, as part of our newspaper reading, we now present the day's death listings. If you need further information on any of these names, you can call us at 716-821-5555. Jill Bernhoft, Claudia J. DeSarno, Nee Brown, Frederick J. Forsyth, Mary V. Gurman, Nee Krasinski, Randy M. Grupp, Matthew M. Jarash Jr., Joanne D. Cummings, Nee Rusito, Reverend James F. Dorr, CM, Francine M. Flood, Virginia Kurtzman, Nee Marks, Leonard Pym, and Alice Zalewski,
Zalewski.
Nee Kush. And if you need any further information on any of these names, again, you can call us at 716-821-5555. That's 716-821-5555.
Thank you. And now let's move on to a little entertainment with Royal Stars from Georgia Nichols. Happy birthday for Tuesday, July 28th of 2026. You're competitive and driven. You're charming, multi-talented, full of intellectual energy. Let go of the people, places, and things from the past that have held you back. And the stars show the kind of day you'll have. 5 dynamic, 4 positive, 3 average, 2 so-so, and 1 difficult. Looks like people are going to have a pretty good day today. We got Aries with 4 stars. Channel your energies into creative activities. Today favors the arts. Fun socializing and playful times with kids, and tonight your high viz. Taurus is also 4 stars. Steer clear of controversial topics because this is a poor day for important decisions. Focus on home and family. Relax at home among familiar surroundings if you can do so. Tonight, explore. Gemini, 4 stars. Get some physical energy today so you can blow off any pent-off steam that might be building up within you. Relax and entertain at home, and tonight check your finances after you blew off energy. And then Cancer has 3 stars. You have a strong need to share your ideas today. This could relate to something financial, and tonight relax with others. Leo, 4 stars. Enjoy physical competitive sports and activities with friends and groups today. Be careful because you might want to shop for beautiful things as well. Clothing, art objects, and jewelry, which is a poor idea. Tonight, work. Virgo, 4 stars. This might be an excellent time for you to shop for wardrobe goodies, but not today. That was kind of a self-contradiction there. A discussion with someone younger could be beneficial. Tonight, socialize with others. Libra, 3 stars. This is a popular time for you, and today's a wonderful day to schmooze with others. It's a great day to relax and enjoy the company of friends, and tonight, relax. Scorpio, 4 stars. It's important to know you can make an excellent impression on others at this time, which is why this is a good week to go after what you want in terms of personal appearances, interviews, and asking authority figures for permission or approval tonight. Brainstorm creative ideas. Sagittarius, 3 stars. Avoid financial decisions today and definitely avoid shopping for anything other than food and gas. However, relations with authority figures are excellent. On the other hand, be patient with partners, spouses, and close friends, and tonight, check your money. Capricorn, 4 stars. You have the energy to work, but be careful. Agree to nothing important. Don't volunteer for anything. Restrict spending to food and gas tonight. Relax. Aquarius, 3 stars. Today you want to play. However, you might feel tension building up within you. This tension will likely arise between you and spouses, partners, and close friends. Explore the arts and creative activities tonight. Privacy. And finally, Pisces, 4 stars. This is the perfect day to hang out with friends and take things easy. If you choose to work hard, stick with a situation that requires few decisions. Most of the day is a poor time for new directions and new ideas. Restrict spending to food and gas, like everybody. Tonight, friendly discussions.
And from Bloomberg and Ronald Brownstein, we have an opinion of forget the SAVE Act. There is a better way to fix voting laws. Legislation to reshape the rules for voting nationwide is the issue that's prompted the greatest pressure from President Trump on Senate Republicans to end the filibuster. That's also the issue that triggered the greatest pressure on Senate Democrats to end the filibuster under President Joe Biden. The parallel is no coincidence. And just as a minority of Senate Republicans have refused to revoke the filibuster to pass the GOP's so-called Save America Act on a party line basis, a tiny handful of Senate Democrats refused to do so to pass the party's Freedom to Vote Act under Biden. In their policy aims, the Biden-era Democratic and 2026 Republican voting bills are inimical. The Democratic legislation offered an interlock series of reforms to make it easier to vote. It would have required every state to offer at least 2 weeks of early voting and no excuse absentee mail ballots, provide online same-day and automatic voter registration, and restore voting rights to felons upon release from incarceration. The current Republican bill, in the name of enhancing security, would make it significantly more difficult to vote. It would order every state to require photo ID and limit the acceptable forms of identification for a more restrictive list than any state except Ohio now allows. The bills would also mandate that every state require proof of citizenship to register to vote. Some versions of the bill would block the 8 states that automatically provide mail ballots to all eligible voters. Critically, Each of these bills would have the greatest impact on states that mostly vote for the other party. The Democratic bill would have required the biggest changes in red states because Republicans control almost all the states that don't already offer automatic voter registration, no excuse absentee ballots, online voter registration, at least 2 weeks of early voting, as well as those that don't automatically restore voting rights for felons. Conversely, Democrats fully control none of the 7 states that now require proof of citizenship to register to vote, as well as none of the 10 states that the nonpartisan National Conference of State Legislatures identifies as imposing the most restrictive photo identification requirements, and just 2 of the 14 with less restrictive photo ID laws. With each bill requiring the greatest changes in states within the other party's sphere of influence, it's not surprising neither attracted any support from senators on the other side. The parallel impasses on these party-line voting bills leave the Congress and the country with only 3 possible options. One is to accept the federal stalemate and allow the states to drift further apart in their voting rules, just as they are separating on so many other issues. That may be the path of least resistance, but it means tolerating a widening divergence that has left voting systematically more difficult in blue and red than blue states. The second is to end the filibuster, or at least establish a carve-out from it to pass voting reforms on a party-line basis. Don't think that's a good idea. Many commentators, including myself, thought voting rights were important enough to justify an exemption from the filibuster under Biden, which he belatedly endorsed before resistance from then Senator Joe Manchin and Kristen Sinema doomed the effort. But Trump's push for the SAVE Act underscores the limitations of such a strategy. If Democrats had jettisoned the filibuster to pass their voting reform bill under Biden, Republicans would use a simple majority vote to repeal the Democratic bill and impose their own nationwide voting rules now. Democrats would surely do the same the next time they obtain unified control of Congress and the White House. That's a recipe for whiplash and instability. The final option is one Congress hardly considers anymore. Pursue a durable, bipartisan agreement that marries the priorities of both parties. Requiring proof of citizenship for voting is such an egregious idea. The Brennan Center for Justice and NYU Law School has calculated that at least 25 million citizens lack the documents it would require, with minorities and women especially at risk, that no Democrats are likely to ever accept it, plus that requirement is a solution in search of a problem. Notwithstanding the New Jersey non-citizen registration glitch disclosed last week, multiple studies from groups across the political spectrum and from states themselves have found that non-citizen voting is exceedingly rare. But requiring photo identification to vote has preponderant public support, and with a reasonable list of acceptable documents, is unlikely to be a deal breaker for Democrats. In return, Democrats probably couldn't ask Republicans to require no-excuse mail balloting in every state, given how Trump's obsessive hostility to it has permeated the party. But with voter ID as the sweetener, there might be some Republicans willing to accept other widely popular 2021 ideas, such as nationwide automatic and same-day registration, guaranteed early voting, and rights restoration for the formerly incarcerated. None of this is possible while Trump is president and pursuing his unrelenting campaign to seize unprecedented federal control of election administration. And it may be that even imposing voter ID on blue states will never convince enough congressional Republicans to accept the voting reform Democrats want in red states. The next president from either party ultimately may face the same choice that stymied Biden and Trump and their Senate allies: end the filibuster or abandon voting legislation. But as Trump's SAVE Act deservedly stalls, the road not taken remains an agreement that sets a nationwide standard on some of the election rules that matter most to each party.
Amen. And from Susan Estrich, It is long past time to end the backlash. Ending the backlash on LGBTQI plus issues is the title of a recent report from the liberal think tank, the Center for American Progress. As you might expect, the Center report urges Democrats to stand firm supporting transgender soldiers and gender transition care, but when it comes to girls' sports, it's not what you think. This is what the liberal group has to say. The NCAA recently promulgated restriction on transgender women playing in women's sports, a decision that it deemed appropriate for the level of competition and the sport it governs. Other associations, such as the National Intramural Recreational Sports Association, have passed policies allowing students to participate according to their gender identity. This is where these decisions appropriately lie, with sports governing bodies or schools themselves rather than with politicians. While local bodies and associations should minimize unnecessary exclusions, restrictions may be appropriate under some circumstances. Restrictions may be appropriate under some circumstances. Hallelujah! Not that I'm in favor of restrictions, I'm just against losing elections over them. We hope that this lowers the temperament and lets us come out of this really scary moment for folks, said Caleb Smith, CAP's director of LGBTQI+ policy, who is transgender and a co-author of the paper. Thank you, Caleb. You have hopefully given Democrats a place to stand without facing too much backlash. Americans are not voting based on transgender issues. They don't show up on the list with the war and the economy and affordability, but issues like transgender discrimination unfortunately play into that calculus of character of whose side are you on, and what that has been wielded so effectively against the Democratic candidates. An overwhelming majority of American voters don't think transgender girls should play girls' sports. I don't happen to be one of them. I feel bad for the handful of girls, and it's usually just a handful who lose out most directly when districts adopt appropriate restrictions. But is it worth risking an election over? Remember the ad of President Trump's most effective of the campaign, using transgender care in prison to attack Kamala Harris for standing for them, they and them, while Donald Trump stands for you. The Harris campaign said they had nothing to say to blunt it. That can't be right, or it can't be right again. Barney Frank of Massachusetts was the first openly gay member of Congress and a fierce fighter for gay rights. Before he died this past year, he gave a series of interviews in which he cautioned the party not to move too fast on transgender rights, and in particular, girls' sports. Barney talked about how the gay rights movement moved toward marriage equality but didn't start there. We have work to be done, which starts with winning the election of people who are willing to recognize the full range of gender equality, even if it comes with some appropriate restrictions. The Center report concludes that all athletes deserve fair competition and a level playing field, and I believe that. And we shall achieve it one day. Caleb's report and Barney's wisdom will hopefully bring us closer to that day.
Yeah, well, that's a long day coming, I think, the way we are with politics, right?
Well, we'll see what happens.
Yeah. So the feds are facing a confusing economic moment. The Federal Reserve has remained mum about interest rates as inflation concerns have heightened, leading to confusion about the state of the economy. Inflation slowed sharply in June, according to the latest Consumer Price Index, largely due to lower energy prices that month. Investors took that as a sign that the Fed might feel less compelled to hike interest rates to combat price pressures for the first time since July 2023. But the conflict in the Middle East has intensified in recent weeks, triggering a spike in global energy prices. Brent crude, the global oil benchmark, crossed the $100 a barrel Thursday for the first time since May. And meanwhile, Fed officials are debating how the AI infrastructure built out could impact inflation. The economic cross-currents have made it difficult to understand where inflation is headed. On top of that, Fed Chairman Kevin Warsh hasn't provided any guidance. Wall Street is unsure whether the Fed next week will hold its benchmark lending rate steady for the fifth consecutive meeting or raise rates according to futures, a lack of clarity not seen in years. The Fed is looking at all these inflationary impulses and determining if they will be there over the long term. Naranja Kocherlakota, an economics professor at the University of Rochester and former president of the Fed Reserve Bank in Minneapolis, told CNN. But it's becoming very difficult to know what the Fed is going to do in the next few months because Chair Warsh has been studiously uncommunicative about how the Fed is going to react to these changes in economic conditions. As Fed Chair, Warsh ditched a long-held practice known as forward guidance. Since 2000, Fed officials have given forward guidance in the spirit of transparency so Wall Street would have an idea of where interest rates were headed. In his confirmation hearing in May, Warsh said he wouldn't speculate on the economy's path as chairman. The jury is out on whether his decision is working out. It's going to lead to market volatility. It makes businesses more reluctant to invest, meaning they'll be less likely to demand workers to build the kind of goods and services because they're uncertain about what the Fed is going to be doing. That kind of uncertainty, in my view, is a completed, unforced error on the part of the Feds. On the other hand, some argue that Fed officials spoke too frequently about the economy in the past, and we got to a point where the dissection of the Fed's forward guidance was so acutely broken down into parts that I'm not sure it helped in the way it was meant to help either. Kenzia Samuel, chief market strategist at wealth management firm AssetMark. Fed officials largely agree that the central bank shouldn't hike interest rates because energy prices will eventually come down on their own. Conventional wisdom among central bankers is to look through one-time price increases, such as those associated with higher tariffs and a jump into oil prices, Federal Gov. Christopher Waller said this month. But the longer these price pressures persist, the greater the risk that inflation broadens well beyond the energy market and sticks around for longer. This could begin to erode Americans' faith that inflation will eventually slow toward the Fed's 2% annual target. And one brief here, Buffalo Go Green gets $428,000 for its Pathway 360 program. The National Grid Foundation is providing a $428,000 grant to Buffalo Go Green for the development of its Pathways 360 program. Pathways 360 will create learning opportunities and provide support to young people in Western New York who are interested in gaining experience and pursuing degrees in careers in agriculture and food system fields. The funds will be dispersed over 3 years. Buffalo Go Green is a nonprofit urban agriculture organization founded in 2016 by Allison Dehoney. The curriculum for Pathway 360 will be created by Buffalo Go Green staff, the Agricultural School at Dayton, Ohio, based Central State University, and students from Syracuse University who had created an agriculture permaculture campus research project.
And from Ramesh Haroof of CNN, millennials try to make the minivan cool again. I like minivans. They see them rolling, but maybe they won't be hating. Millennial parents are changing their minds about the minivan. A TikTok video shows off lounge-style chairs with built-in ottomans and 14-inch screens in the back of a Kia Carnival. Another proudly shows off a Toyota Sienna proclaiming 18 cup holders, but y'all still thirsty. One mom turned her minivan into a living room, but not without throwing out the old stuff with an enthusiastic yeet. Minivans, once the de facto soccer mom vehicle of choice, are making a big comeback. Long considered a dead segment, minivan sales grew 21% in 2025, selling almost 400,000 units, according to Edmunds. The Toyota Sienna is one of the fastest selling cars in the market right now, said Matt Smith, head of the content of the Car Gurus. Sales increased 35% in 2025, and they stay on dealers' lots for only around 18 days. In May, Chrysler and Dodge CEO Matt McAleer declared that the minivan is seeing a resurgence. Millennials have reached prime parenting age, and they're not just discovering the wildly practical features of inside minivans, like seats that don't just slide backwards and forward, but side to side, are now learning to best lug their kids. Kelsey Spencer, a mom of 3 girls in Northwest Illinois, thought she'd never be caught dead in a minivan. Now she can't seem to live without her 2026 Kia Carnival Hybrid. When she first got a van 2 years ago, Spencer was afraid she would pull up and people would say, ugh, a minivan. Instead, people ask, what kind of car is this? It's really cool. Parents said sliding doors make it easier to shuffle kids around, and third row fits growing humans well, but it also shows an affordable vehicle compared with the muscular, hulking SUVs that were once family vehicles of choice, but are now some of the most expensive autos on the market. There's really no better vehicle for people hauling and cargo capacity, but because they were deemed uncool for so long, sales just completely dropped off. Ivan Drury, the director of insights at Edmunds, told CNN, but in the end of the day, your money is what matters most, right? Minivan space and versatility were pioneering when the car debuted in the 1980s. At the time, station wagons were the uncool family lugger, said Damon Smith, research editor at Cars.com. And over time, minivans acquired soccer mom baggage. SUVs were simply seen as a cooler. SUVs were simply seen as cooler. Commercials showed off sleek and imposing vehicles with four-wheel drive, going off-roading through rugged terrain, adding some aspirations to Tuesday night baseball practice pickup. And car manufacturers knew that customers would buy into that, even though more families are using their cars to go to the grocery store rather than driving through the jungle. We're not smart car-buying population in that regard, Drury said. I know plenty of people with families that would certainly have benefited from all that additional cargo space in the minivans. Minivans still only represent about 2.4% in the overall market, compared with 3.2% in 2016. Most people simply don't need all the space a minivan provides. Suburbia has certainly changed since the era of Home Alone and cheaper by the dozen. American families are now having fewer kids, and McMansions are harder to come by. But perhaps a nostalgia for a life that is also leading some families in minivans. As one millennial mom confessed, I never in a million years thought that would come out of my mouth. I'm starting to really romanticize having a minivan.
Yeah. And just a couple of quick notes here. Data center powers may bypass laws. Power sources providing electricity only to data centers and not the public grid may not be subject to federal pollution laws, the EPA said on Monday. The EPA said if the power plants are not supplying electricity to the grid, then they would not be subject to the Federal Clean Air Act acid rain program, which has been key to the dramatic reduction of smog and soot pollution from industrial facilities. The EPA believes that, considering the plain text of these definitions, the acid rain program does not apply to power generation facilities that are not connected in any way to the larger electricity grid. The agency said its interpretation of federal pollution laws would speed the development of artificial intelligence infrastructure while reducing strain on regional electric grids. And Senator Mitch McConnell is not yet cleared to leave a rehab facility where he is undergoing physical therapy after a fall last month led to a weeks-long hospitalization, according to news statements. And you are listening to a reading of articles from the Buffalo News for Tuesday, July 28th. On your Niagara Frontier radio reading service, we'll return for more reading after this short break. Your readers today are
JJ Patek
and Lita.
If you're listening to this publication online, you're probably using our website, a podcast player like Spotify or iTunes, a streaming service like Siro, or a smart speaker. Did you know that we now have a dedicated app that can be downloaded to any mobile device, like a smartphone or tablet, for free? App users can conveniently access our live stream and any episode of our podcast easier than ever. To download the app, just type NFRRS in the search window in the Apple App Store or in the Google Play Store. Contact us anytime if you have any questions by calling 716-821-5555, extension 5. Thank you.
we'll continue now with our reading of articles from today's Buffalo News. In case you forgot, your readers are
JJ Patek
and Lita. And in local news, a man incarcerated at Alden Jail dies of cardiac issues. A man incarcerated at the Erie County Correctional Facility in Alden died Friday, the Erie County Sheriff's Office said on Monday. Darko Tabar, 74, was evaluated Friday by jail medical staff after he experienced difficulty breathing, the Sheriff's Office said in a news release. At 4:48 p.m. Friday, Tabar was taken by ambulance to Erie County Medical Center. He died just before midnight. Tabar had a documented history of cardiac issues and foul play is not suspected. An investigation is ongoing. Tabar entered Sheriff's Office custody on the 7th of July following an arrest by Buffalo police, according to the release. The Sheriff's Office said it would not provide further details at this time. Tabar was arrested by Buffalo police on the 4th of July and charged with child endangerment, a misdemeanor, and second-degree harassment, a violation, according to court records. He was arraigned on the 5th of July, referred to a problem-solving alternative court program, and released on his own recognizance, according to the records. Buffalo police arrested him on the 6th of July and charged him with second-degree criminal contempt, a misdemeanor. At his arraignment in the second case, he was also referred to the alternative court program. Bail was set at $5,000, according to court records. The first arrest was a domestic incident for which an order of protection was issued, according to a spokesperson for the police department. The second arrest, following a complaint via 911 that Tabar was violating the order, the spokesperson said. The last death of a correctional facility inmate came in December when Kadane Hale, 31, took his own life. He had been charged with killing his girlfriend and 4-day-old son on Norwood Avenue in October. The Sheriff's Office investigation ruled Hale's death a suicide. The last death of a person in the Sheriff's Office custody happened earlier this month in the Erie County Holding Center with the killing of Antonio Pizarro, who was 27. 2 other inmates have been charged with murder in Pizarro's death.
Thank you. From Ben Sugimoto, Henderson brings vast skills to the school board. And the last of 6 candidates interviewed for a vacant seat on the Buffalo School Board, Roscoe Henderson III had a chance to leave a strong impression before the board went into executive session to evaluate his options. He seized it. Henderson, a former Buffalo police investigator, a school resource officer, U.S. Air Force cadet, Arts Organization board member, and 17-year resident of the North District, on Wednesday was sworn in as a new North District representative. Henderson will complete the 2.5 years remaining on the term of Cindy McEachin, who resigned June 24th over frustrations with the board's governance and decision-making. In a short speech following a swearing-in by State Supreme Court Justice Craig D. Hanna, Henderson expressed gratitude to a wide range of trailblazing influences in his past, including former Common Council member George K. Arthur, former NAACP Buffalo President Daniel Acker, Buffalo Schools and University Buffalo leader Kay Martin, civil rights advocate Frank Messiah, and several parish leaders, among other notable figures in Buffalo's history. The responsibility of serving on the Board of Education is significant, Henderson said, but it aligns naturally with everything I've done throughout my life. During his public interview Monday, Henderson said he does not intend to run for the district seat when it is up for election in November of 2028. He said he's not concerned with personal advancement. This city of Buffalo has done so much for me, Henderson said, and I just look at this as a way of giving back. The North District, one of 6 represented on the board, includes areas north and west of Delaware Park, as well as a small slice of the Elmwood Village. It is easily the most affluent district. The 5 board members who voted on Henderson's appointment were unanimous in their support. 3 board members abstained from the vote due to an external memo from the State Education Department commissioner unrelated to Henderson's credentials or interview. Henderson's appointment comes at a time of strife on the school board and across the district, as Superintendent Pascal Mubenga resigned before allegations of sexual harassment and abuse of authority were made public, while active board member Louis Mookie Hawkins was named in a legal notice and is the subject of a separate investigation. Henderson's experience working with kids in a school setting stems from his previous role as a Buffalo School Resource Officer during his 25-year career with the Buffalo Police Department. His engagement with the Buffalo School Board in the past is through board-appointed committees, with the most recent coming in 2023 when then Ferry District Representative Sharon Belton Cotman asked Henderson to serve on the board's Ethics Committee. Although he said he never intended to become a police officer, much of his early career was working in constituent services for elected officials. His law enforcement and military backgrounds influence his personal scruples. For those who don't know me, integrity and honor are not just words. They are my principles by which I live my life, Henderson said. Transparency and policy were among his focuses during the half-hour interview, including his desire for clear relationships between Buffalo schools and the Buffalo Police Department. I always wondered how come the police department didn't have an outline of what the job responsibilities of a school resource officer are. And we've been around a while, Henderson said. I also think it's kind of interesting that there isn't an MOU between the city and school district and the police department referring to a memorandum of understanding, a document that outlines an agreement between two organizations. Henderson cited a major incident from 2022 for which he would have demanded greater public transparency. The incident that may have taken place at McKinley High School, where a student was hurt and a security guard was hurt. I think that information should be released to the public, Henderson said. He was referring to an incident of the school district's response to the McKinley incident that was led by Vista Security Group in March of 2022. The results were never shared with the public, and according to media reports, nor were they shared with Buffalo police. Henderson said he balanced his law enforcement career by contributing to an image of Buffalo, a range of Buffalo arts groups, including work with the Buffalo Center for Arts and Technology and serving on boards for Center for Exploratory and Perceptual Arts, or CEPA, gallery in the Market Arcade downtown. And among the 34 members of the board of directors representing the Buffalo AKG Art Museum. Board members at Henderson's interview appeared pleased with his answer for how he'd approached the needs of the North compared with those of the entire district. I'd advocate for things for the North, but in doing so, whatever I ask for the North, it should raise a tide for all students, he said, and my advocacy would help the entire district succeed. I want to represent a community where the priority isn't protecting the power base, but ensuring that every student, regardless of where they live, has a path to success. Hannah, the judge who accompanied Henderson at the swearing-in, chimed in on Wednesday. Roscoe is a hard advocate, Aunt Hannah said, so I hope you're all ready. And we'll see.
And Governor Hochul has made an offer to New York students enrolled at Howard. New York students who were abruptly unenrolled from Howard University just weeks before the first day of school will be guaranteed admission to the State University of New York or the City University of New York this fall, Governor Kathy Hochul was set to announce on Monday. I don't know if that was done. Each student will also receive an $800 credit to help offset their non-refundable deposit at Howard, according to the governor's office. Hundreds of students, including New Yorkers, are scrambling and scared since they've been disenrolled from their intended college just a few weeks before classes are set to begin. New York is home to the nation's finest systems of public higher education, and we are ready to welcome these talented students with the opportunity they deserve. To every student who is worried that their educational future has been disrupted, New York is ready to support and empower you. Howard, a historically black university in Washington, D.C., confirmed last week that it removed more than 500 incoming freshmen from its rosters after multiple detailed communications since March to students and their families who missed key enrollment and financial deadlines. The episode launched a social media frenzy, with students taking to TikTok and other platforms to share their experiences of being admitted to their dream school, only to have the rug pulled out from under them on the cusp of their first semester. Some incoming freshmen said they had been waiting on private scholarships and other financial aid. In recent days, Howard had re-enrolled dozens of students as school officials continue to review appeals, according to reports. During a CNN interview on Sunday, Howard interim president Wayne Frederick said it's not unusual for colleges and universities to unregister students who miss key deadlines, but that Howard had not been as strict about enforcing the cutoff until this year. It's not clear how many of the unenrolled students live in New York, though school enrollment data shows the Empire State was one of the top ones sending students to Howard last year, second only to Maryland. While guaranteed admission only applies to New York residents, Hochul said out-of-state unenrolled Howard students interested in SUNY and CUNY can receive expedited late admissions reviews at campuses with open space. We understand that the enrollment update is difficult and disappointing for students and their families, read Thursday's statement from Howard. As Howard finalizes enrollment for the fall 2026 semester, which begins on the 17th of August, confirming enrollment is essential to planning academic programs, housing, financial aid, and student support services.
Thank you. And back on politics, a three-way fight to lead Dems as Vinal tosses the hat in a ring. This is from Sandra Tan. Jean Vinal, a lawyer in Erie County legislator since 2020, has added her name to the list of elected leaders challenging the county's longtime Democratic Party chairman Jeremy Zellner for party leadership in September. Her interest and the interest of others in challenging Zellner's leadership raises speculation about the rising stakes for local Democratic Party leadership, which influences who runs for elected office, who gets party support, and who represents the interests of Erie County residents. The challenges to Zellner's leadership mark the first time in a decade that Zellner has faced a challenge during his 14-year tenure. Vinal is the second person from Amherst to confirm her interest in unseating Zellner. On Wednesday, Amherst Town Board member John Davis, who is in his first year of elected office, announced his intention to challenge the chairman. Political insiders remain doubtful, however, that Vinal or Davis can unseat Zellner. None of Vinal's Democratic legislature colleagues plan to endorse her over Zellner, and none of Davis's fellow board colleagues plan to support him over Zellner either. Zellner pointed out Sunday that Erie County Democratic Committee chairmanship is not a voting contest by the masses, but a vote of more than 1,000 Democratic committee members who will cast their ballots for party leadership at the end of September. I've been contacted by hundreds and hundreds of them since the primary who are supporting me, Zellner said, and if I can also add, every one of John Davis's town government colleagues has endorsed me since he announced. And every one of Jean Vinal's colleagues has endorsed me since she announced. I think that's really telling. Vinal said Sunday that she knows she has an uphill battle, but she wants to push the conversation forward about how the country's Democratic leadership needs to be more open, welcoming, and humble. Whether I win or don't win doesn't mean there shouldn't be a discussion and doesn't mean that there shouldn't be options, she said. We shouldn't be a party of rubber stamps. We should be a party where we can talk things out. In a conversation, if you don't change the leadership, you might push it one way or the other in the sense of people thinking of things they didn't think of before. She also said she wants to be a conduit for welcoming more people who want to get involved and feel like they have a place within the party establishment. Many Democrats don't feel that way now, she said. Vinal first confirmed her intentions to challenge Zellner with WIVB on Saturday. Vinal, 62, is a Buffalo native and has lived in Amherst since 1999 and works as a private practice lawyer. She's known for her participation in legislature discussions, efforts to raise money for her district, her scrutiny of the Erie County Sheriff's Office, interest in transparency, and independent voting record. Most recently, she has chaired the legislature's Special Fleet Policy Subcommittee to reform policies related to the assignment, use, and cost of taxpayer-funded county cars. While she typically votes with her fellow Democratic colleagues, she's broken from her majority caucus colleagues or even with the rest of the governing body. That refers to the failure of the county legislature to take a vote on term limits for to take a vote on term limit law for county elected officials, saying Zellner pressured legislatures to let the matters die. She also claims Zellner has tried to encourage other candidates to run against her because she doesn't always toe the party line. While Zollner has long had support to remain chairman since being elected in the fall of 2012, his failure to find a Democratic challenger for sheriff in 2025, the recent loss of party-endorsed challenger Karen Hoke in the Assembly in the June primary, and his own failed campaign to run for Mayor Sean Ryan's former state Senate seat against Assemblyman John Rivera has been viewed as high-profile setbacks. Zollner's determination to run for the state Senate 61st district seat while still serving as party chairman has become bulletin board material for his opponents and did little to stem the growing interest in an increasingly liberal base for Rivera, who won that primary race. Nevertheless, Zollner remains a formidable leader within the party, a successful fundraiser and skillful navigator of backroom politics who has a long track record of putting forth Democratic candidates who win. He maintains support from County Executive Mark Poloncarz and was previously endorsed by Governor Kathy Hochul. You've got a raise, give or take, anywhere from $600,000 to $1 million a year, depending on how busy we are, and it's a really tough job, he said. It's been difficult holding it together over the years, but it's been the work of my lifetime to do it, and I'm really proud of what we've accomplished so far. He disputed assertions that he isn't open to other points of view and broader conversations within interested party members and potential party leaders. As Zollner said, Vaynol has never had more than one in-depth conversation with him over the years about the way she thinks the party is falling short or any other reservations regarding his leadership. And he also said the county's Democratic town chairs and the 27 chairs of the Democratic Party zones in Buffalo will meet next month to hear all contenders for a top party seat. That will include a number of new committee members who were just elected in June. And I'm really looking forward to making my case, he said. I think I have a strong one.
You know, my opinion is, not that it matters what my opinion is, but I find it odd that he didn't care when he went to run for the other seat. Like, whatever. And now all of a sudden it's a big deal. Like, well, I've got to be in control because obviously we're going to fall apart without me. That's just my opinion. That's one person's opinion, which doesn't mean a thing.
Yeah.
So let's see what people are asking Eric now. Dear Eric, I'm finding that I don't much like getting older. My husband and I have just learned that we need to be closer to medical help, so we must sell our current home, which we love, and move. We have 2 sons, both of whom we love dearly. Each want to build a little home on their property so we can be close enough that they can help us if necessary, but still be independent. For many reasons, we would like to build on one son's land and not the other. How do we tell them this without giving the reasons, which are very real to us? I can't bear to hurt either one. Signed, Property Brothers. Dear Property, I'm sorry that you have to move away from the home that you love. That's a hard transition, and there may be some grief involved in that. It's good, however, that you have a support system eager to step up and help you. Your sons know that you can't live in 2 places at once, and it seems likely that they both have your best interests in mind. So if you don't want to give the specific reason, it's fine to thank them both for their efforts, acknowledge that you can't take both paths, and tell them that you've made the choice that makes the most sense to you. There's no need to belabor it or debate it. The focus should then shift to how you all, as a family, can work on the logistics of the move and set you up for this new phase of your life. There are plenty of ways that the son with whom you won't be living can still show up and support you, but be it in the form of transportation help, errands, or just company. You may want to think through some of those additional needs in advance so that you can direct him if need be. If you have the capacity, at some point you may want to check in with him to make sure he's not feeling hurt. But this wouldn't really be for your own peace of mind and in the interest of keeping clear lines of communication open. It's not your responsibility to manage this. The most important thing to remember is that your sons want to help you during what might be a stressful and taxing time in your life. Dear Eric, in these financially tight times, for some of us senior citizens, I find myself being asked for a lot of gifts. Where can I draw the line without offending? Recently, after a couple I know got engaged, I gave them an expensive engagement gift. Emily Post used to say, if you gave an engagement gift, you didn't have to give a wedding gift. I will be giving them another significant gift for their wedding. I'm attending their destination wedding at some
Good grief.
considerable cost to me because of my relationship with the groom's parents. I have now been invited to a bridal shower I can't attend. Must I send a gift to this young woman? I have never met the bride and assume I made it on the invite list due to the engagement gift. What's the right thing to do? Signed, Feel Like an ATM.
Good grief.
Dear ATM, short answer, you don't have to send a gift for the bridal shower. In addition to Emily Post's guidance, I'd add to that you need to feel compelled not feel compelled nor expected to give beyond your means. Weddings can become multi-part affairs with many different opportunities for gift giving. The key word is opportunities, not obligations. It's important to remember that the main objective is celebrating the couple getting married. If you can afford to give a wedding gift in addition to traveling for the destination wedding, that's wonderful. But the couple should not expect a gift at every event from every guest. It's simply not reasonable. Makes sense to me. Dear Eric, I just read your response to the person having difficulty understanding service agents on the telephone. Confusing call. As someone who is deaf and used a cochlear implant, I have found a solution that works very well for me. If you use a smartphone of any type, go to Accessibility and then Hearing and turn on the captions. You will get captions of everything that is being said by the other person. It has reduced my stress level tremendously when making calls to banks or telecoms. There's also a caption service called InnoCaption that does the same thing and is paid for by the federal government. Hope this helps. It took me a few years to find these services. Signed, Captioned. Dear Captioned, thanks for these great suggestions. The accessibility features on smartphones and other devices can be game changers.
Yep. And even sometimes they have problems. Well, cancer survivor finds calling in end-of-life care. This is from John Harris. Seated in the chapel at Sloan Comfort Care Home, 22-year-old Evan Folsom reflected on what working at end-of-life facility has meant to him. The home did come at the right time for me, Folsom said, hours after finishing an overnight shift there and a day before taking the day-long medical college admission test. Folsom survived a brain tumor as a toddler and spent years recovering. That alone shaped an interest in medicine, but in the last couple of years he's confronted more health concerns and struggled to get concrete answers on what's causing them. He's had to learn how to push forward even on certain moments. It's trying to reconcile this idea of going forward despite the uncertainty and trying to keep your head up and look forward and not back, Folsom said. At that critical juncture, he started I lost my spot. He started volunteering and then working at Sloan Comfort Care Home and had 2 beds for guests and provides free round-the-clock care to those in the final moments of their lives. That's difficult. While supporting guests and then families, Folsom has learned about himself, gained perspective, and found a potential career path in end-of-life care. Soon he'll start a 1-year bioethics program at Harvard Medical School. Alex Lauer, Sloan Comfort Care Home Executive Director, said Folsom became involved through Mercy Doula training class that the home offered and then later joined the staff. Lauer said it's been meaningful to watch Folsom's commitment to end-of-life care, especially as the home tries to play its part in shaping compassionate next-generation healthcare providers. Evan's story has really moved all of us, Lauer said, and we're excited about the path he's taken in healthcare. When Folsom was just a year old, he was diagnosed with an anaplastic ependymoma, a fast-growing tumor in his brain. Within days, he went in for a craniotomy. The surgeon temporarily moved a section of his skull to access his brain and remove the tumor. After doctors still believed there was residual tumor remaining, and that led to 9 weeks at Massachusetts General Hospital in Boston for proton beam therapy, a radiation treatment that delivers beams of protons to damage and destroy tumor cells. Folsom said he was deemed free from cancer by around 18 months old, but his journey and his recovery were just beginning. Folsom said he didn't talk until he was around 4 years old, and as he began school, he noticed it would take him a while to understand and get the right answers. I was really demoralized by that, he recalled, and with assistance and supports in the classroom, His academic difficulties began to subside by high school. He grew up in Lancaster and graduated in 2022 from St. Joseph's Collegiate Institute and decided to attend Canisius University to study biochemistry and philosophy. Before long, he would face uncertainty. 2 years ago, about halfway into his undergraduate years at Canisius, Folsom experienced balance issues, and he had what felt like a seizure. The first instinct, he said, was, "Oh God, it's back. The brain tumor's back." He saw a neurologist who thought it might be epilepsy, but that was ruled out. Another doctor noticed a spot on a scan and said it needed to be monitored. At times, his symptoms were bad enough that he needed the support of a cane while walking, though he tries not to use it much anymore. Folsom still doesn't have a clear-cut answer on what's beneath his symptoms. He plans to see a specialist during his time in Boston, a world-renowned healthcare hub. As he sought answers in the last couple of years, he found understanding in something else: how to deal with uncertainty. I've reconciled with this idea that, we're all going to have uncertainty sooner or later, and that uncertainty is how we get through life. Reaching that level of acceptance would have been more difficult had he not found Sloan Comfort Care Home, he said. As Folsom traveled to doctor's appointments and received varying answers, a friend at Canisius told him how much she loved the work she was doing at Sloan Comfort Care Home. He wanted to volunteer there. Felt like he needed something in his life at that point amid his health concern to really make me realize that this is not the end. And I instantly fell in love with the mission of the place as a whole and the goals that it set out to achieve, he said. Folsom started volunteering there 5 days a week in May of 2025, around the end of his junior year at Canisius. He took a Mercy Doula training class and learned how to provide companionship, care, and support to those nearing the end of their lives. In December, he joined the staff at Sloan Comfort Care Home, and he worked night shifts, typically 20 to 30 hours a week. The work reinforced to him that medicine doesn't always have all the answers, and he discovered how to provide comfort to people as they approach the end of their life. He realized that palliative care is just as important as curative treatments because it's curative treatments without making someone comfortable. Without making someone uncomfortable, I think that's supposed to be.
Yes, it's supposed to be.
And working there gave him perspective of what really matters. It's all about family, and when it comes down to that, he said, and it's about what makes people you love, and you want to be supported by the people that are around you and not necessarily the material possessions that you've acquired through your lifetime. The work is rewarding but difficult. Some family dynamics break his heart, as does losing a person he's built a connection with. At the end of his shift, Folsom goes to his car and sits in silence for a few minutes just to decompress. The rewarding part of it overshadows that and the idea that you're making a difference at the very end, said Folsom, who graduated from Canisius in May and received 4 senior awards from the Department of Chemistry and Biochemistry. He had moments where he wondered if he should keep pushing forward or keep going to school, but his work at Sloan Comfort Care Home helped him come to terms with certain issues and fueled his interest in studying the complex moral and ethical questions that arise in medicine. So he took a shot in the dark and applied to Harvard Medical School's Master of Science in Bioethics program along with a few other schools. He got into all of them but chose Harvard because Boston holds a special full-circle meaning for him. Massachusetts General Hospital, the largest teaching hospital of Harvard Medical School, is where he received treatment as a toddler. Harvard was specifically deep for me because that's the kind of where my journey started, he said. Folsom leaves for Boston on August 1st for the one-year program that will begin September 2nd, and he also is applying to medical schools in hopes of starting medical school in July or August of 2027. As he moves forward, he has an interest in pursuing a career in palliative care, which he thinks is sometimes dismissed as a branch of medicine that can't offer a cure. But Folsom, more often than not, more than most, knows that there's value in feeling comfort in life's uncertain moments.
God bless him. That's quite a life.
That is.
And so let me just first of all tell you that you are listening to a reading of articles from the Buffalo News on the Niagara Frontier Radio reading station, and the time is 29 minutes past the hour. And I'd like to ask this question: how many of you don't want a better love life? That's a ridiculous question. We all do, don't we? So here's some simple tools you can use to improve your love life from Emotional Fitness. They are called the 8 C's. Number 1, care. Showing your partner you care is as simple as opening a door or cooking a meal, but you also have to verbalize it. Some people never say the 3 little words, and that's hard on your mate, so find a way to let your loved one know you care. Be there a little more and create a random act of kindness. It doesn't take much. Number 2, consideration. Some may think of it as care on steroids. Being considerate means that you go out of your way to make your other half feel that they are loved. And when you go out of your way, your actions will speak louder than even those 3 little words. We all know what those words are. Number 3, communication. A willingness and desire for communication is paramount to any successful relationship. Truly, it is the most important thing. Given that we have so many ways to communicate in our techno world, there is no excuse for not talking it out with your partner. Voices are better than texts, but take what you can get. If you are tweaked about something, get it out and on the table. Number 4, compromise. An ability to reach a compromise is such a valuable tool in your relationship. If you go in thinking you need to have it all your way, nothing will please you. By working together, a compromise, you will keep tempers from rising, and while you may not get everything you want, you'll get what you need. And that's the way it should be. Number 5, confidence. We need to know that our relationship is safe and that our partner loves us. This is in our DNA. Without a sense of belonging, you cannot grow and prosper, and your desires will always be elusive. Threatening your relationship when you are having an argument is unfair. Instead, show confidence in what you have. Realize that you can disagree without being disagreeable. Number 6 is comfort. It is easier than you think to make your partner feel uncomfortable, and sometimes we do it unknowingly. If you're a little upset and you carry that around with you, it will come out in your tone, your attitude, and actions, and it will make your loved one uncomfortable. Stop punishing each other and express your love instead. Do all you can to give each other a comfortable life. Time is too precious to waste on feeling bad because your other half is mad at you. Number 7 is cherishing. To feel cherished as the most important person in your mate's life will keep the two of you close as you value and validate each other. Knowing that your partner thinks the world of you can give you tremendous strength. Number 8, having a good cheerleader by your side when the chips are down or gone can help you deal with any problem. Life is just easier when your partner lifts you up and reminds you that you can reach your goals, and you are more likely to have a better relationship when you feel you deserve it. If any of these qualities are missing from your relationship, work on adding or restoring them. Employ these simple ideas, and your love life will be much more fulfilling.
And from Dear Heloise, we have anyone can cook.
I don't know about that.
I don't know about that either. I recently read that 1 in 4 Americans can't make a basic meal, and I found this to be surprising. If you can read, you can follow instructions in a cookbook. If your mother cooked most of your meals, just ask yourself, what did she make for dinner? You don't need a master's degree to toss a salad. People who say they can't cook haven't tried to cook. That I know is not true. I know people that could kill a slice of bread. And I'm talking to you bachelors out there. Don't believe anyone who says they can't cook. They may not be good at it, but anyone can make a basic meal. While I was in college, my frat brothers and I read your column and learned a lot from you. And this is from Jason M. in Hillsboro, Oregon. I don't know. I've known people that could wreck a glass of water. Dear Heloise, a friend of mine had remarkable wide rubber bands that she used to keep her cereal boxes closed. I asked her where she got them, and she said that when a pair of rubber gloves gets worn out and have holes in them, she cuts along the cuff part of the gloves to form these large bands. When I mentioned how clever I thought she was, she told me she had found this hint in your column. So from both of us, thanks a million for all your wonderful hints.
Cool.
That's from Kelly and Isabel in Mississippi. And pork roast poisoning. Dear Heloise,
From the
my
person
mother...
who can't cook.
Well, I won't go on about that.
Just kidding.
I come from a family of cooks. We all cook. My mother always left frozen meat on the counter to kitchen counter-a-thon, nothing bad ever happened until now. We went to Mom's for dinner Sunday, and she served a pork roast. Everything was fine till later in the evening when we all ended up in the emergency room.
Jeez.
Turned out we had food poisoning from the pork roast. The physicians warned us to never thaw meat on a kitchen counter. We had never had a problem in the past, but this one event was enough to make us sit up and listen to the doctor's warning. My husband, my kids, and I spent 3 days recovering. Well, and then while you wait, dear Heloise, most of us go through situations where we have to wait for a while. Instead of glancing through outdated magazines or staring at the walls, I take a crossword puzzle from a newspaper or a crossword puzzle book with me. Time seems to fly while I wait to see the doctor or while my son takes his piano lesson, and that's from Annie R. in Marietta, Georgia. And finally, the healthiest nuts. What are the healthiest nuts to eat as a snack? Asked Rachel in Renton, Washington. Well, Rachel, there really isn't a healthiest nut because they all offer nutritional value. However, most dietitians usually rank pistachios, walnuts, and almonds as our top picks due to their protein and fiber and antioxidants. Pistachios are classified as a complete plant protein with all 9 essential amino acids. Walnuts are often called brain food. They look like little brains, by the way, and contain the highest plant-based omega-4 fatty acids. And almonds have the highest fiber and protein per serving of any nut. They're also a good source of vitamin E. Mm-hmm. And by the way, peanuts are not really nuts, and they're also the most highly allergenic.
Yes, they are. So how about a little sports?
Well,
okay, the Buffalo Bills have unveiled their Nickel City alternate uniforms, which had gotten mixed reviews, I might add, in tribute to Western New York's industrial past. The Buffalo Bills have gone gray. As it prepares to move into its new home next month, the team unveiled a new alternate uniform Monday morning, a radical departure from its red, white, and blue roots. A base gray uniform and pants combination, along with a blue helmet for the first time in franchise history, make up the heart of the new look. We knowingly made some bold design choices moving to this, said Aaron Laporta, the team's director of design. In the end, we're very proud of the effort and thought that went into all of this. Hopefully, it's clear in the result. According to the team's vision statement for the new uniform, inspiration was found in our region's past. From the steel mills to the grain elevators and rail yards, our city's history is paved by the blue-collar Western New Yorker. The statement read, as we move into our new stadium, we pay tribute to those individuals with an alternate uniform design that forges our region's industrial past with the bold future of Buffalo Bills football. Starting from the head down, the new uniform features what the team is calling a charged helmet. The signature horn, eye, and charged streak that is featured in the team's usual Charging Buffalo logo is isolated on the new helmet, which is a royal blue shell color with a micro-metallic flake finish.
Wow.
NFL rules on alternate uniforms stipulate that a team must use a color that exists in its current closet's palette. The Bills got creative in choosing gray, which exists on the face mask of the team's throwback helmets. Blue numbers are outlined in white on the new uniforms, while the Charging Buffalo is moved from the back of the primary jersey to the front left chest on the alternates. A blue collar is a nod to the workers in our region, while inside the collar is the Go Bills team mantra that has become a universal greeting for fans in the wild. When we go through these processes, everybody has a different connection to the team. It's personal, said Laporta, who has been with the team for 14 years and refers to himself as a brand guardian for the franchise. Are we going to have half that love it and half that hate it? I don't know. But we have to trust the guardrails, our own intuition, knowing the brand. There are times that you have to take a swing. The charge stripe will be a part of the branding inside New Highmark Stadium. The Bills believe that it can stand on its own as an identifiable part of the franchise. Now it's reflected in the uniform, Laporta said. That's our Nike swoosh. We're really starting to lean into that a lot more. Work on the new alternate uniform began in November of 2024 and had to go through a lengthy approval process with the league. Teams can have up to 5 uniform variations in a given season and 3 different helmet colors, which the Bills now have. It is the second straight season the Bills have unveiled a new uniform following the debut of their cold front jerseys, which I did not like, during the 2025 season. That was part of a joint initiative between the NFL and Nike to create a rivalries collection for each team. The Bills can wear their cold front jerseys through the 2028 season, while the new Nickel City alternates will be part of the team uniform rotation for at least the next 5 seasons. The team is expected to wear the Nickel City uniforms at least twice during the 2026 season. A complete schedule of what uniforms the Bills will wear for the season is expected to be released by the team in early August. So that's coming up, folks. What are your thoughts on the new Nickel City uniforms? Well, we're moving into the new building, so how do you evolve your overall approach, said Pete Gwelly, the team's chief operating officer. Now, in subsequent seasons, things could change. We may mix up what we wear, but that first inaugural season, we felt like we need something new, something bold to represent that new era. The Bills took some input from some current players during the design process, too. Seeing their faces, it was a really cool moment to see how they embraced the new threads, Laporta said. It's a swing, and it's bold, and we're happy with it, and we like it. JJ?
Oh boy, yeah, I've already gotten feedback on that one. I looked at it and said, well, it's a uniform. That's my view. It's a uniform. And in college football, from the Newswire service, is Sanders past his prime at Colorado? No one wears a $10 million hat the way Deion Sanders wears a $10 million hat. But 2026 is the year his boss must show, to borrow a beloved Texas idiom, that they've got the cattle too. No one knows football is a results-based business more than a man that played cornerback in the NFL at that level, as Deion did. Mike Golick Jr., the Big 12 football analyst with TNT Warner Brothers Discovery, told Denver Post writer Sean Keeler by phone Friday. And so that's the reality of the situation. This is a pivotal year to continue to show proof of concept, and they have gotten the right people in place now, and they are going to get back to building towards the heights that felt more attainable at the beginning of Deion Sanders' tenure. Coach Prime knows how to blow it up this season, and perhaps ultimately his era in Boulder will be judged by how well he puts things back together this fall. The Buffs are in the Big 12 biggest mystery again. New coordinators, new go-go offensive system, new go-to wideouts, new defense pretty much, new athletic director. Last fall's 3-9 mark had ticket sales flagging and fans flustered. Another losing season, oh, we know those, stacked up against next to the last one will raise more of the types of questions Sanders doesn't especially like to hear. Well, 3 losing campaigns out of 4 while practicing a win-now roster-building philosophy is a tough sell to CEO Athletic Director Fernando Lobo. It's hard to sell to alumni who are wondering aloud if the prime effect was a Travis and Shedeur effect all along. Whether it's knowing someone's salary as a player or okay, this one's not making sense. Whether it's knowing someone's salary as a player or no salaries of those of us in the media, anytime people know the number, it's big. They're going to expect a certain level of output because of that, Golick said. It comes with the territory, and again, going back to his playing days. I'm sure there's no one better suited for that kind of external pressure than Deion Sanders. How much pressure depends on your pocketbook. Sanders has 4 years remaining on a contract that pays him $10 million this fall and $11 million in 27 and 28. CU would owe the coach at least $33 million. If the school tries to buy out his contract in 2026, that number falls to $25.5 million in 2027 and $17.25 million in 2028 and $9 million in 29. On one hand, Coach Prime costs too much to be on the hot seat. On the others, he costs too much not to be. We better win. That's going to be the big surprise, Sanders told reporters at the Big 12 Media Day earlier this month. That's the surprise. We better win. We're going to win. With a new and widely respected offensive coordinator joining the staff in Brennan Marion, and a slew of impact portals such as wide receivers Danny Scudero and DeAndre Moore, plus linebacker Gideon ESPN Lambton, and defensive back Boo Carter, the Buffs are going back to the well of what worked in 2024. Surround a returning quarterback, Shedeur Sanders then, Julian Lewis now, with older proven impact players proven at the group 5 level at least, at high skill positions who won at smaller schools. CU's record will probably depend, mind you, on how well the Buffs' offense and defensive lines gel, same as it ever was. Yet the world remains, to put it kindly, unconvinced. A preseason writers' poll during Big 12 Media Days slotted CU to finish 15th among 16 Big 12 programs. Well, that's not good. Even if the seat under Sanders isn't especially warm now, it would be if the Buffs posted a mark of 4-8 or 3-9 again.
Mm-hmm.
So
let's see what's going on in the MLB. Tyrone Taylor's go-ahead 3-run homer in the 6th inning propelled the New York Mets to an 8-3 victory on Sunday over the visiting LA Dodgers. The veteran outfielder greeted reliever Evan Phillips with a 405-foot blast into the left field seats for his 8th homer of the season and 5th since the 4th of July. Marcus Seaman, a defensive replacement in the 7th, added another 3-1 shot to cap a 4-run 7th for the Mets as they snapped a 3-game skid. 4 relievers combined to limit the Dodgers to 3 singles and 1 hit by pitch over the final 5 innings. Sion Perez, 4-3, pitched 2 perfect innings and struck out 3. The LA bullpen did not match the Mets. Jack Dreyer walked 2 batters in the 6th and got only 1 out before being replaced by Phillips, who was 0-2, who allowed a homer for the 4th time in his last 5 appearances. Yeesh. Will Klein gave up 4 runs in the 7th on 2 hits and 2 walks. The first 3 Met batters got hits off Dodger starter Emmett Sheehan, with leadoff hitter A.J. Ewing doubling and scoring on Francisco Lindor's single. Bo Bichette, who was 2 for 4, followed with another base hit. After that, Sheehan allowed just 2 walks and 1 hit batsman while fanning 5 over 5 innings. LA scored twice in the 3rd off the Mets starter Freddie Peralta. Eliezer Alfonso hit a leadoff double, and after an out and an Andy Page walk, Freddie Freeman doubled home Alfonso. Max Muncy's groundout made it 2-1. And the Phillies beat the Yanks to avoid a sweep. Woohoo! Bryson Stott and Alec Bohm combined to 9 RBIs as the Philadelphia Phillies throttled the visiting Yankees 11-4 on Sunday night to avoid a 3-game sweep. Christopher Sanchez, 134, allowed 3 runs in 6 innings for Philadelphia, which has lost 6 of 8 to open in the second half of the season. The All-Star left-hander gave up 6 hits and 3 walks while striking out 6. Stott finished 3 for 4 with 5 RBIs, while Bohm drove in 4 runs and scored twice. Trey Turner, chipped in with 2 hits and 2 runs scored for the Phillies. The New York starter Will Warren, who's 7-5, surrendered 6 runs and 6 hits in 3 frames. All-Star Ben Rice doubled, homered, and scored twice for the Yankees, who had been 5-1 in their previous 6 games. And the Sox shut down the Jays. Go Sox. Boston Red Sox started Ranger Suarez and 4 relievers combined to shut down the visiting Jays in a 6-1 victory. Boston, which has won 17 of its last 19 games, won a 6th straight series. Suarez, pitching for the first time since the 5th of July due to a groin strain, was taken out after 4 scoreless innings and 64 pitches. The southpaw allowed 4 hits with no walks and struck out 6. Greg Weissert, who is 3-2, Tyrone Garone, Justin Slayton, and Ryan Watson scattered 5 Blue Jay hits the rest of the way. Blue Jay starter Kevin Gossman, who is 4-10, allowed 3 runs and 5 hits in his 6 innings.
And now back to, more news about how import taxes on Canadian goods will affect U.S. consumers. And this is from Rachel Barber of USA Today. The Trump administration on July 20th announced 50% tariffs on many Canadian imports, though exemptions mean the hit to most Americans' budgets likely would be limited unless they buy targeted goods affected by the new duties, economists say. President Donald Trump used Section 338 of the Tariff Act of 1930 to impose the tariffs in response to what the administration calls discriminatory Canadian trade practices against the United States, particularly its auto industry. The tariffs are scheduled to take effect August 19th, but Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney signaled he's open to negotiations, so the final rate and scope could change. The tariffs primarily will affect goods flowing into the U.S. from Canada's auto, alcohol, and dairy industries. Oil, natural gas, critical minerals, and other Canadian products are exempt. Though Canada is the second largest U.S. trading partner, those exemptions limit those tariffs' effect to about 5% of the $382 billion in Canadian imports to the U.S. recorded in 2025, according to Brian Therian, a senior analyst at Edward Jones. Tariffs became a defining feature of Trump's economic agenda in his second term. Even as import taxes face legal challenges, the administration seeks ways to implement them. The White House released a list of hundreds of Canadian imports that will be affected by the new 50% tariff, ranging from honey and flowers to plywood and clothes. Tariffs are a tax on imported goods. U.S.-based importers pay the price often before selling the goods to retailers, who then sell to consumers, and along the way the tariff price increase can either be absorbed or passed on. They always are. Shikha Jain, a Simon Kucher partner and lead of the consumer sector for North America, said if the new tariffs take effect, she expects most retailers will pass the cost increases on to consumers over the next 3 to 4 months. However, the flip side to this is that we know that when there are very severe price hikes, or at least a 20% increase in discretionary pricing, about 20% of consumers stop purchasing altogether, Jane said, adding businesses will carefully weigh prices increases because if they get too high, they might not be able to move product. Many U.S. home building materials historically came from Canada, so a 50% tariff could make building new homes in the U.S. more expensive, you think? According to James Knightley, chief international economist at Dutch banking ING, for consumers hoping to avoid tariff cost increases, advice is simple: buy American. And did the tariffs hike inflation? When Trump announced tariffs on imports from nations around the globe in April of 2025, economists were concerned they would meaningfully raise prices for U.S. consumers. And that was when, of course, we were talking about tariffs at 30 to 50%, Knightley said. Adding the U.S. effective tariff rate was about 2.5% before Trump retook office last year. But as we saw, the administration swiftly changed those tariff rates, and we settled at an average tariff rate at about 16 or 17%, yet the actual realized rates undershot expectations. Federal Reserve Bank of Dallas researchers estimated that year-over-year core personal consumption expenditures, a measure of inflation, would have been 2.3% in March this year had it not been for tariffs. Instead, it was 3.2%. We're seeing about 25% of the inflation coming from tariffs, Jane said, adding typical year-over-year inflation and price increases tied to the Iran war make up much of the rest. However, a lot of other businesses use tariffs as the reason for or as the excuse to take prices up, and it's easy for consumers to have something to blame. And where are prices headed? Canada stands ready to engage intensively with U.S. negotiators to come up with an agreement to the mutual benefit of our citizens, Carney said in a July 20th statement. Knightley said because tariffs typically are challenged in court once they take effect, a lawsuit's unlikely to stop their implementation. It's more about whether enough concessions are achieved to get it moderated, he said. For me, I think it unlikely we will see meaningful reduction. The Trump administration also seeks to implement tariffs under different authorities. Drew DeLong, head of corporate statecraft at Carney Foresight, an internal think tank within management consulting firm Carney, said he would be surprised if the U.S. effective tariff rate is not higher at the end of this year than it was at the end of 2025. Jayan said average American consumers should expect prices to keep rising, noting it's going to be difficult for us to see a world where we get stable prices in the next 3 to 4 years. So there's more news about shopping.
And here's a couple of things on this day in history. In 1868, the 14th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution was certified and officially adopted. The landmark amendment guaranteed citizenship to all persons born of naturalized in the United States, including former slaves. In 1914, 1 month after the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand of Austria and his wife Sophie, and after a breakdown in negotiations, Austria-Hungary declared war on Serbia, effectively starting World War I. And you have been listening to a reading of articles and features from the Buffalo News. For Tuesday, July 28th, we read from the Buffalo News live on weekdays and Sundays mornings at 9 a.m. and rebroadcast at 4 p.m. For more information, you can call 716-821-5555. Your readers today have been
J.J. Patek
and Lita. Thanks for listening. Take care. Smiling.
If you or people you know shop at any of the Dash's supermarkets, please save Dash's register tapes for radio reading. Our agency receives $2 for every $100 in Dash's register tapes. Radio reading has raised thousands of dollars so far. Anyone can drop off their Dash's tapes to the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service at 1199 Harlem Road, Cheektowaga, between William and Clinton Streets. Or Dash's tapes can be mailed to the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service at 1199 Harlem Road, Cheektowaga, New York, 14227. Any questions on Dash's tapes for radio reading? Call us at 716-821-5555, and thanks for caring. program is intended for listeners who are blind, have low vision, or have another print disability